What's going on, guys? This is Andrew Gorn here. Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Today, I actually want to talk to you guys about something that, I've always learned about when I was a kid from my dad, and that's GMOs, genetically modified organisms. So, I recently read an article named Willingness to Pay for Food with Varying Production Traits and Levels of Genetically Modified Content. This article, was a research journal and was filled with a bunch of acronyms and graphs and blah, 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 basic science stuff. But the base of it is they did an experiment that they went into college kids' areas, two schools in particular. They went into classrooms and to dorms and passed out surveys. These surveys were talking about GMOs and the willingness, again, to pay more for this food. This survey started off by talking about the general definition for what a genetically modified food is, which is the first definition, which is the first generation, which is any food that was created genetically modified to help farmers produce more crops. So essentially, if they spray pesticides on their crops, they genetically modified it so that these pesticides won't actually kill the crops. Then there's the second generation of genetically modified food, which is actually really interesting because they can genetically modify food to basically have more nutrients in them, which I personally think is really cool. Then they also gave the definition of organic, which is basically any product that is not given antibiotics, sprayed with pesticides, things like that. So the survey started off by getting kind of background knowledge information on the people and the students that took it. And they asked questions like, have you ever heard of a GM food or organic? And then they kind of went into more of the other parts of the experiment, which was the more important parts of the experiment. They asked if you were to buy milk and cereal, which are two pretty common college products. I mean, college student products. I personally have cereal almost every day, and, got to have the milk with that. So they asked them, would you be willing to pay for cereal and milk that were not genetically modified if the cost was a little bit more? And shockingly, the students had a resounding no in their answer. But what's interesting is, from the first part, a large amount of students actually didn't know what a GMO was. So the idea that they're not willing to pay more for something that they don't know actually makes a lot of sense. And even that, most college students aren't going to pay more for something that, they don't have to. Which actually brings me to an interesting point. Students that did know about GMOs actually were more willing to pay that extra bump. So it seems like there's kind of a information gap in these students. Which actually brings me to another great point of why I really disagreed with this survey and this whole experiment. You see, only around 300 students actually did this survey, which is not a lot, being that they went to two different schools. And the demographics on it were very, very singled out. I mean, they had basically white males and a couple females and a couple black males and a couple black females. There was not very many other race in there. So it's very, very centralized on who actually filled out the survey, being that, again, there was only 300 too. So I think that's a major flaw in this survey. But also, most college students, again, are not going to want to pay more for anything. So this experiment, I think, would have done a lot better if, it was given to adults. Because most adults are the ones who go shopping every day and get food and groceries. So I think there's a lot of flaws in this experiment, but I do think that it was an interesting idea and concept, but I think it needs to be worked around and fixed. So that's my take on this. Let me know if you think there's anything I missed in this. If you want to read the article, I'll send out the link. But, personally, I think that this experiment's kind of flawed, and I hope I could explain it well enough, and I hope you guys liked my podcast, and I'll see you guys in the future. Peace out.